Hello, friends and dairy products of all ages. I'm Cheese of Ages, and I'm here with, as you can tell, a bit of a short review, a preview of the full-fledged review for the new playtest packet that came out today. I'm only doing a short review because it's released a lot of materials, and I'm not going to be able to do it on schedule, so I figured I'd give a shorter review and then, have a more fleshed out review later. Basically, the materials here fix previous problems, create new problems, and advance characters all the way to level 20, when previously from the last packet there was only 10 levels. Now all the current classes can go all the way to 20. A lot of the things were fixed and tweaked. For instance, clerics now no longer have full armor proficiencies. Their armor and weapon proficiencies are set by their deity, which I enjoy. That's one of the feedbacks I gave. Some clerics should have less armor because of what they worship and the tenets they follow. So basically, clerics of the god of magic aren't proficient in armor, and don't get any extra armor proficiencies, but the clerics of the god of war are walking around in full plate with, like, great axes. I enjoy that, while the warbringer cleric could stand to be a little bit less proficient in martial weapons because he gets them all. I have to look deeper to see if the warbringer cleric steps on the fighter's toes too much, but right now it seems like it's an okay shake, at least early on, aside from the fact that the cleric can heal himself. The fighter is basically more fighty, because he's got more weapon techniques. Mind you, later on the cleric gets like massive fireballs kind of thing, and can heal himself. But yeah, they also adjusted the rogue to where his damage output isn't nerfed as it was before, where he had to work to be as good as the fighter. Now he's just as good as the fighter, as far as damage goes. And the problem is they kind of almost completely eliminated sneak attack. They did what I wanted, and simultaneously did nothing, in a way, because instead of making it sneak attack a little bit more punchy if you specialized in it, they eliminated sneak attack completely and just made you hit harder when you stab people in the back if you specialize it. While some may argue that it's sneak attack, it's not intrinsically a traditional sneak attack, and isn't called sneak attack, and doesn't work like sneak attack has always worked. Therefore, while it is a sneaky-tacky kind of thing, it's not sneak attack in itself, and it's also incredibly unbalanced to an extent. But intrinsically, they eliminated sneak attack in its traditional I do more damage aspect. Well, not entirely, but I do more variable damage, let's say. And while previously the rogue had to work to do the same bonus damage a fighter could do with a maneuver, basically they've upped the damage for both. There's something called martial damage dice. It takes place of expertise dice. You use them to fuel maneuvers, or you can use it to do your expertise dice in bonus damage. And this is now a D6 instead of a D4. And so you roll it and add the damage to it. The rogue and the fighter can do this in the same conditions. It doesn't require sneak attacking at all. If you want a sneak attack-like ability, you have to take the rogue's game Assassin, which makes it where when you fulfill sneak attack conditions, you can lose advantage. So basically you have to have advantage, and you lose advantage, and it's basically a save or die effect for the large majority of things. It just does so much massive damage. If you strike with a weapon you're proficient in, and especially if you expend your martial damage dice, although it's not increased by the effect, you will one-shot, the large majority of the time, things that are 4 levels higher than you. One-shot them just by sneaking up on them. This is the same as it was back before they nerfed it. Sneak attack would kill pretty much anything within 4 levels of you, because you just did so much more massive damage. But it's to the point where a first level rogue can one-shot a 5th level monster if that monster fails its save. And considering how saves are relatively easy to fail, easy-ish, at least a good 50-60% of the time you're going to kill it. And considering there's a lot of ways you can get advantage, you can pretty much do it however you like. And also considering now rogues can two-weapon fight because they fixed that, they can attack to assassinate 2 times if both of the attacks fulfill advantage. Because they took away the fact that two-weapon fighting grants you disadvantage and just made it a static attack penalty. So yeah, now a rogue can sneak attack you twice. And his sneak attack, each of them is a save or die effect. And yeah, let's continue to mention the fact that if you're the same level as the rogue, it's a you die effect and no save. Because let's go over the exact semantics instead of just being vaguish about it. When you assassinate a guy, you have advantage, and you give up advantage to do more damage. You maximize your damage. And the large majority of things will die instantly to that are on your level or a level higher than you, depending on what weapon you're using. If you're a dwarf and use an axe, or you're an elf and use a sword, a longsword, which, by the way, assassins are proficient in all melee, all martial weapons, so yeah. Most monsters within the first 2, maybe 3 levels will die regardless of whether they succeeded the saving throw. If they fail the saving throw, they take maximized damage times 2. Yeah. That will kill things within the first 5 levels of you. At level 1. By the time you're level 5, that will one-shot something your level regardless. And they need to get their monster math right. Because the fact that a level 1 rogue can fairly easily sneak up on a beholder and stab him in the spine and take out 1/5 of his hit points. And a beholder's a level 13 monster. That's a bit unbalanced. That's a bit unbalanced. I'm sorry. Now, two-weapon fighting, throw that in there too. I'll just let you do that math. But another issue of two-weapon fighting, it has feat support now, because the combat specialties are back, and I'm glad to hear it. Unfortunately, my joy of having actual feat support for fighting styles was kind of stunted by the fact that Wizards of the Coast needs to freaking get better editors. I mean, seriously, if you're a long-time follower of my videos, you saw my reaction video for this Shire, an excerpt for the Heroes of the Elemental Chaos. Look at my videos. It makes fun of a typo in the article I was linking it to. They misspelled the word heroes, and it stayed that way for nearly a full year, because nobody on the staff caught it. Seriously, Wizards of the Coast, slap your editors in the back of the head, or something. Or fire them and get better ones. You need better editors, or your editors need to get better. Why am I saying this in regard to two-weapon fighting? Okay, let me explain how two-weapon fighting works now. Without feat support, you have to use at least one light weapon to two-weapon fight. And you make 2 attacks, and both are at a -2 penalty, similar to 3.5. But for damage rolls, you use the light weapons damage, and you don't get your ability score modifier to damage. So essentially, that usually means you'll be, doing 2d6 damage, maybe 2d8, depending on your race. And that's fine. That works. That's pretty good. That's smooth. It fixes a lot of problems, although it does actually break the rogue a little unless I'm misreading it. I'll correct myself if necessary in the full review. The problem with this comes in with the first feat support. Dual weapon wielder, I think it's called. It's dual weapon something. I'm pretty sure it's wielder. It might be dual weapon fighter, but it's probably dual weapon wielder. They phrased it wrong. they didn't include the full benefits of defeat in it. And while I know what they mean, and everyone generally that has any experience with tabletop gaming or isn't an idiot will know what they mean, unfortunately, if you follow like stringently what they say with defeat, and then you look at the normal rules for two-weapon fighting, the way it's phrased means you can't do damage. Because remember, you do the damage for the light weapon. All dual weapon does, as stated, rules as written, is enable you to two-weapon fight without using a light weapon. It doesn't give you the ability to do damage of a non-light weapon. I mean, sure, we all know what they mean. We all know that they mean deal the damage of the smaller weapon. If there's a smaller damage dice. If you're using the same weapon, just, use the rules as if you were fighting with two light weapons. Which means, one of your attacks does have the ability score modifier. But no, they don't actually state that, which is something a rulebook should do. It's not necessarily a huge error, but it's something a proofread would fix. It's one of those little inconsistencies, those little things a frequently asked questions article would address. Something that should not be in a rule book. A rule book should be concise, especially for something so simple and obvious to spot. But no, Wizards of the Coast editors suck. Seriously. Someone link this to Wizards of the Coast. Or comment in one of the surveys. Which reminds me, they didn't actually do a survey for the previous thing. At least I didn't get one. And I have 2 emails signed up to the playtest. Well, actually, I remember they did do one, but they didn't do one after they released the Monk. Which, they normally do when they release little thingamajigs like that. There was no freaking place to give feedback for the Monk. Well, and if you're in the playtest, mention this typo in the survey extra information section in the feats. It's like, okay, you need to clarify the two-weapon fighting thing. We know what you mean, but it's like a stupid little typo kind of thing. You need to fully state clearly and concisely the benefits of dual-weapon wielding, because you're not giving the full mechanical explanation that needs to be there. The feat is supposed to make it where you can deal damage for whichever the smaller weapon is, or as if you were wielding 2 light weapons. Instead, it just states you don't need to use a light weapon. Like I said, we know what they mean, but it doesn't state that. It doesn't give the mechanical explanation. It doesn't give you the mechanical benefit to do it. It doesn't state or give you directly rules as written the ability to deal damage. Instead, it makes it where you can't do damage if you follow the exact rules as written. I've harped on that enough and repeated myself enough times. But yeah, it's going to be a little while before I have a full-fledged review because there's a lot of material to cover. But generally, at a glance, everything seems reasonably balanced and everything seems reasonably polished, with the exception of the fact that they really need to work on their monster math. And I don't know how comfortable I am with the assassinate ability being an instant death for almost everything, and relatively easy to do. And essentially, unless I'm misunderstanding something, you could essentially do it twice if you two-weapon fight. So instead of like two-weapon fighting not working with the rogue at all, it's now too powerful. Instead of the fighter being the only one you would use two-weapon fighting with, now it's the rogue. Well, the rogue being so much superior at it. Anyway, this is Cheese of Ages, chuckling and drinking coffee off. Wait, that doesn't make any sense. Sighing off. Not sighing. Signing. Fumbling off. Ugh.